The quiet, frozen expanse of the Alaskan wilderness was shattered one winter night by a blaze of unnatural light. Mike, a retired Air Force pilot now living a solitary life in his remote cabin, was outside chopping wood when the sky erupted. A burning object streaked across the heavens, its fiery trail cutting through the stars like a knife. It crashed into the frozen forest a few miles away, sending a shockwave that rattled the trees and sent snow cascading from their branches. Without a second thought, Mike grabbed his heavy coat, emergency kit, and rifle. His instincts as a pilot kicked in. Someone might need help, and he might be their only chance. The old truck rumbled to life, its engine protesting against the cold, but it was reliable. Mike drove toward the crash site, guided by the fiery glow against the night sky. The air grew thick with the smell of burnt metal and ozone, a clear sign that whatever had come down was no ordinary meteorite or satellite. As he approached, he parked the truck behind a thick copse of trees and proceeded on foot, his breath visible in the freezing air. The wreckage was unlike anything Mike had ever seen. Embedded in the ice and snow was the twisted remains of an alien spacecraft, its hull torn open and exposing a flickering interior lit by panels of alien symbols and dim, pulsating lights. Wires sparked, and the remnants of what looked like control panels were strewn about. Then, amidst the chaos, Mike heard a faint moaning. He moved toward the sound, pushing aside debris, and found her. An alien girl, her skin shimmering like the aurora in the sky above, hues shifting subtly with every labored breath. She was injured, struggling to breathe, her luminous blue eyes flickering open and closed. "Hang on," Mike said gently, as if she could understand him. He carefully lifted a collapsed panel off her, assessing her injuries. She had a deep gash on her leg and multiple bruises, but nothing seemed immediately life-threatening. Using his emergency kit, he bandaged her leg as best he could and helped her into a sitting position. Her eyes locked onto his, glowing softly with a light blue hue, and she spoke in a series of soft, musical tones. Clearly a language, but one Mike couldn't decipher. "No need to try and talk," Mike said. "I'm going to get you out of here." Whether she understood or not, she seemed to sense his intent to help, her body relaxing slightly. Mike supported her as they moved slowly back to his truck. He laid her down in the back seat, covering her with blankets to ward off the freezing temperatures. As he drove back to his cabin, Mike's mind raced. He knew he should report this to his former contacts in the military, but something held him back. She was clearly vulnerable and alone. For now, at least until he understood more, he would keep her safe and hidden. Back at his cabin, Mike helped her inside and settled her on a makeshift bed. The harsh Alaskan winter howled outside, but the sturdy walls kept the cold at bay. Over the next few days, Mike observed her recovery, noting her resilience despite her injuries. He used his old tablet to document her symptoms and recovery, thinking it might help in understanding her biology. She, in turn, was slowly adapting to her new environment. Her initial weariness gave way to a cautious curiosity about Mike and his world. Despite the language barrier, they began to communicate through gestures and expressions. Mike learned that she could understand some English, though speaking it seemed beyond her capability. One evening, as the aurora borealis danced across the sky, she pointed at it, then at herself. Mike nodded, realizing she was trying to tell him she was from somewhere in the cosmos where such lights were common. He showed her a map of the galaxy on his computer, and she pointed excitedly to a remote sector, her fingers tracing paths between stars. Her home was clearly far beyond human reach. Realizing the gravity of her situation, Mike knew she needed more than just medical help. She needed to get a message home. He rigged up an old radio transmitter, hoping it might catch some frequency her people used. She watched intently, her bright eyes analyzing every move he made, occasionally guiding his hands with a gentle touch to make adjustments beyond his understanding. The cabin was filled with the crackle of static as knights passed with them huddled around the equipment, tweaking and turning dials. Finally, a series of sharp beeps broke through the noise. Her face lit up with a mix of joy and relief. She quickly responded with a complex series of tones. After a tense wait, the machine crackled back to life, and a voice, melodic and alien, filled the room, speaking in her tongue. She conversed rapidly, her voice a mix of urgency and excitement. Mike watched, understanding none of the words but feeling the weight of the moment. When the conversation ended, she turned to him, her expression somber. She sketched quick, vivid pictures of her planet, Valoria, and of her people caught in what looked like a battle. She pointed to herself, then to the images, making it clear she was a key figure in whatever conflict was unfolding. It dawned on Mike that she was not just an alien. She was a political refugee, perhaps even royalty, on the run from forces that wanted her captured or dead. The responsibility weighed heavily on him, but his decision to help her felt more right than ever. That night, as she slept, Mike sat by the fire, pondering the enormity of what lay ahead. He had ventured into unknown territory, far beyond the scope of any of his previous life's challenges. Yet, the resolve in her eyes, her trust in him, fortified his determination to stand by her. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As her strength returned, so did her concern for their safety. The news of the alien craft's crash had not gone unnoticed, and it was only a matter of time before curiosity or hostility drew unwanted visitors to Mike's doorstep. They needed to move, and soon. Early one morning, as the first light of dawn crept across the snowy landscape, Mike loaded his truck with supplies. She, now able to walk with some assistance, followed him closely, her senses sharp to any sign of danger. Mike decided they would head deeper into the wilderness, to an old hunter's cabin he knew about. It was isolated, off the grid, and would offer them a temporary haven. As they drove through the winding forest roads, her anxiety was palpable. She kept her eyes fixed on the mirrors, watching for any sign of pursuit. Her fears were not unfounded. A sleek, dark vehicle, out of place in the rugged terrain, appeared behind them. It was clear they were being followed. Mike pushed his old truck as fast as it could go, but it was no match for their pursuers' modern technology. Realizing they couldn't outrun them, he took a sharp turn down a less traveled path, hoping to lose them in the dense forest. The chase intensified, with the pursuer matching every move Mike made. Just as the situation seemed desperate, she pointed to a narrow pass between two cliffs. It was a risk. The pass was barely wide enough for the truck, but it was their only chance. Mike steered the truck toward the pass, branches scraping the sides of the vehicle as they squeezed through. The pursuer hesitated, giving them a few crucial moments to widen the gap. Emerging from the pass, they found themselves in a secluded area with thick underbrush. Mike drove the truck into a copse of trees, covering it with branches and leaves for camouflage. They continued on foot, her leading the way with surprising agility given her recent recovery. Hours later, they arrived at the hunter's cabin. It was rustic and bare, but it provided the cover and security they needed. As they settled in, she explained that the pursuer was likely a bounty hunter from her planet, skilled at tracking and relentless in their pursuit. Her people, the Valoran, were known for their technological prowess, which made evading capture all the more difficult. Mike set up perimeter alarms and traps, not just relying on his military training but also on the survival skills he had honed over years in the Alaskan wilderness. She, meanwhile, constructed a rudimentary communication device from parts she had salvaged from her ship's wreckage, which she had insisted on bringing along. Her plan was to send a distress signal to any Valoran ships that might be in the vicinity of Earth, hoping her allies were out there searching for her. That night, as they watched the cabin's perimeter from the safety of its wooden walls, a new bond formed between them, forged in the crucible of shared danger. They were no longer just a man and an alien. They were comrades, each fighting not just for her cause but for each other's survival. The days following their narrow escape were filled with restless vigilance. Mike and the alien girl, whom he had started calling Lyra in his mind, had managed to avoid detection, but the threat loomed like a shadow over their fragile sanctuary. The bounty hunter was still out there, and it was only a matter of time before they were found again. Mike knew they needed more than just luck to survive. They needed help, resources, and allies. Determined to broaden their defensive capabilities, Mike contacted some old acquaintances from his Air Force days, people who had left the service under mysterious circumstances and were rumored to have encountered non-human technology. If anyone would understand and believe their situation, it would be them. Within a few days, two of his former comrades, Jack and Sophia, arrived at the cabin. Initially skeptical, their doubts vanished the moment they laid eyes on Lyra and heard her story. Jack, a grizzled veteran with a knack for strategy, was immediately fascinated by Lyra's technology. Sophia, who had a background in communications technology, was equally intrigued and sympathetic to her plight. Both had experienced encounters with unexplained aerial phenomena during their service and had been part of a covert group investigating such incidents. They quickly got to work, with Sophia helping Lyra enhance the alien communication device, while Jack began planning defensive strategies, setting up more sophisticated perimeter alarms and camouflaging their location from aerial and ground surveillance. Their combined efforts paid off one evening when Lyra's upgraded communication device picked up a faint signal. It was a coded message from a Valoran scout ship hidden in Earth's orbit, searching for any sign of Lyra. The message was clear. Help was close, but so was danger. The coup on Valoria had intensified, and Lyra's enemies were using all their resources to track her down. The group decided to move to a new location to send a stronger signal back to the scout ship. They chose a remote mountain area known for its minimal electromagnetic interference. The journey was risky, as they needed to transport Lyra's delicate equipment safely while avoiding detection by the bounty hunter, who was still relentlessly pursuing her. As they traveled to the new site, Mike and Lyra discussed her home planet, her people's culture, and their technological advancements. Lyra shared stories of Valoria's vast cities and the bioluminescent forests that covered its surface. Mike, in turn, shared his own stories of Earth, its diverse cultures, and the natural beauty he'd experienced. Their exchange deepened their bond, bridging the gap between their worlds. Upon reaching the mountain site, the team worked tirelessly to set up the communication relay. Jack and Sophia patrolled the area while Mike and Lyra focused on aligning the device with the coordinates provided by the Valoran scout ship. After several tense hours, the device lit up, and a stable connection was established. Lyra's message was sent: a call for extraction and a report of the political turmoil on Valoria. Now all they could do was wait for a response, hoping that their signal had reached the right ears and that help would come soon. In the quiet mountain night, under the watchful gaze of the stars, the group settled in, aware that the coming days would bring new challenges. But for the first time since her arrival, Lyra felt a spark of hope, fortified by the unlikely alliance of Earthlings standing with her. The mountain hideout provided temporary solace, but the group knew their safety was precarious. They spent their days enhancing the site's defenses and preparing for the possibility of an encounter with the bounty hunter. Lyra's distress signal had been sent, but the response from her people remained agonizingly elusive. One morning, as Mike surveyed the area, he noticed an anomaly on one of the monitors. Unexpected movement patterns that suggested they were no longer alone in the wilderness. Someone or something was methodically searching the area. The bounty hunter had picked up their trail again. Quickly gathering the group, Mike outlined a plan. They needed to outsmart the bounty hunter, using decoys and misinformation. Jack and Sophia set about creating false trails leading away from their hideout, while Mike and Lyra worked on a more technological approach. Using parts from the communication device, they assembled a series of small drone-like gadgets capable of emitting signals that mimicked Lyra's unique biosignature. They deployed these drones in various directions, hoping to confuse any sensors the bounty hunter might be using. Meanwhile, Lyra felt a surge of determination. Despite her longing for her home, she had grown to admire Earth's rugged landscapes and the resilience of its people, qualities she saw reflected in Mike. Together, they fortified their bond, turning their shared struggle into a profound alliance. As night fell, the group monitored their traps. Hours passed with no sign of the bounty hunter, but they remained vigilant, rotating watch duties. Suddenly, just before dawn, one of the monitors displayed a brief but intense scuffle. One of the decoys had been intercepted. Using the surveillance feed, they tracked the bounty hunter's movements. He was alone, which gave them a slight advantage. Mike devised a risky plan. They would intercept him at a narrow pass nearby, where Jack and Sophia had prepared an ambush. As they positioned themselves, the tension was palpable. The bounty hunter, cloaked in advanced stealth gear, was more formidable than they had anticipated. However, the element of surprise was on their side. As he entered the pass, Sophia triggered a net trap, momentarily entangling him. The bounty hunter quickly recovered, slicing through the net with a device that emitted a concentrated beam of energy. Before he could fully free himself, Jack and Mike closed in. The confrontation was brief. The bounty hunter, though skilled, was outnumbered. They subdued him, and under the threat of further resistance, he finally yielded. With the bounty hunter secured, Mike approached him, hoping to gain insight into who had sent him. The bounty hunter, realizing his situation was dire, offered information in exchange for his release. He revealed that he was hired by a rival faction on Valoria that sought to eliminate Lyra to prevent her from reclaiming her rightful position in their society. This information was a double-edged sword. It confirmed Lyra's importance and the lengths her enemies would go to stop her, but it also underscored the support she must have back home. The group decided to keep the bounty hunter detained until they could ensure a safe extraction for Lyra. As dawn broke over the mountains, the team felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had not only survived another encounter but had also gained valuable intelligence. Lyra's resolve to return and fight for her people grew stronger, supported by her Earthborn comrades who had come to share her cause. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and tension. The group knew that the bounty hunter's capture was only a temporary victory. His employers would send others, and they couldn't afford to stay in one place for long. Lyra's distress signal had been sent, but the response from her people remained agonizingly elusive. The weight of their situation pressed down on them, but they refused to give up. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the mountain hideout, the communication device crackled to life. A faint, static-filled voice broke through the noise. It was a response from the Valoran scout ship. The message was brief but clear. Help was on the way. However, the situation was delicate. The scout ship had to avoid detection by Lyra's enemies, who had enforced a blockade around Earth to prevent her escape. The extraction plan required precise timing and coordination. The scout ship would be able to briefly break through the blockade and reach a specific set of coordinates within a narrow time window. Lyra and the group would need to be at those coordinates at exactly the right time. The team worked tirelessly to prepare. Lyra, feeling the weight of her impending return, shared more about her hopes for her planet. She envisioned a Valoria where power was distributed more equitably and technological advancements were used for the benefit of all its inhabitants, not just the elite. Her determination inspired everyone, strengthening their resolve to see her mission through. The day of the extraction arrived. The group reached the designated coordinates, a secluded clearing far from any usual paths. They set up a perimeter while Lyra positioned herself in the open, making herself visible to the scout ship sensors. As the time approached, tension mounted. Everyone was alert, scanning the skies and the surroundings for any sign of interference. Then, amidst a quiet that felt almost surreal, a faint hum grew from a whisper to a roar. The scout ship, cloaked and barely visible, descended toward the clearing. Suddenly, sensors triggered an alarm. Another ship was approaching, no doubt sent by the faction opposing Lyra. The group braced for a confrontation, but just as the enemy ship appeared, the scout ship unleashed a barrage of non-lethal countermeasures that disoriented the attackers, buying enough time for Lyra to be beamed aboard. As Lyra ascended, she turned to Mike and the others, her eyes conveying a depth of gratitude and promise. The scout ship vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a whirlwind of leaves and a group of Earthlings who had just altered the course of an alien civil conflict. Mike, Jack, and Sophia watched the sky, their hearts heavy but hopeful. They had done more than their part, proving that humanity could indeed stand with the universe's other races as equals and allies. As they packed up to leave the clearing, they knew this adventure would change their lives forever in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Back at Mike's cabin, the days that followed were filled with a quiet, reflective atmosphere. Mike spent long hours staring at the sky, wondering about Lyra's fate and the future of her world. He thought about her vision for Valoria, her hopes for peace and justice, and how different yet similar her struggles were to those on Earth. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the rugged landscape, Mike's satellite phone buzzed to life. It was a message from Lyra, sent from her scout ship as it orbited a safe haven far from Valerian space. She was preparing for the challenges ahead, gathering her allies, and planning her return to power. Her message was brief but filled with warmth and determination. Mike shared the message with Jack and Sophia, who were packing up equipment and discussing their next moves. The news lifted their spirits and affirmed that the risk they had taken, the alliances they had formed, were for a cause that continued beyond their direct involvement. The trio decided it was time to disband their temporary camp. They needed to return to their lives, to the anonymity that had protected them but would now serve as a shield against any fallout from their actions. As they loaded the last of their gear into the truck, Mike proposed a final toast. They gathered around a small fire, the night crisp and clear. To new friends across the stars, Mike said, raising his flask. And to hopes worth fighting for. Jack and Sophia echoed his sentiment, each feeling a sense of accomplishment and a curiosity about what the future held for them. After returning to his cabin, Mike found himself unable to resume his old routine. The adventure had changed him, expanded his world in ways he couldn't have imagined. His home, once a sanctuary, now felt too small, too isolated. He started researching, learning more about space, about other reported encounters with alien life, and about humanity's place in the broader universe. Weeks turned into months, and Mike's restlessness grew. He began attending conferences, connecting with other like-minded individuals who believed in the existence of extraterrestrial life and the importance of preparing for a future where Earth was part of a larger community of planets. One morning, as Mike reviewed articles from a recent symposium on interstellar relations, another message from Lyra arrived. Her tone was hopeful. She had secured a position of influence and was beginning to implement the changes she had dreamed of. She spoke of Valoria now on the path to recovery and unity and extended an invitation. Come see the fruits of our labor, she wrote. See the Valoria I'm fighting for. Mike sat back, the possibility of traveling to another planet, of seeing Lyra again, igniting a new spark within him. The idea was daunting but thrilling. He realized that his journey with Lyra was not over. It was just entering a new phase. Determined, Mike began making preparations. He reached out to contacts he had made, exploring the logistics of interstellar travel. As he set the wheels in motion for his next great adventure, Mike felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer just a witness to history. He was a part of it, a bridge between Earth and the stars. The journey to Valoria was unlike anything Mike had ever imagined. As Earth faded into the distance behind him, he felt both a sense of loss and profound excitement. The stars ahead were no longer distant points of light but gateways to new experiences, to a reunion that had seemed impossible months ago. When Mike's ship finally entered Valerian space, he was struck by the beauty of Lyra's world. Valoria was a planet of vibrant colors, with sprawling cities that glimmered under the light of its twin suns and vast luminous forests that stretched into the horizon. His heart raced as the ship descended toward the capital, where Lyra was waiting for him. Their reunion was emotional and filled with a sense of wonder. Lyra greeted him not just as a hero of her world, but as a dear friend and confidant. She showed him the changes her leadership had brought. The technological advancements once hoarded by the elite were now enhancing the lives of all her people, and the divisions that had once marred her society were slowly healing. Over the days that followed, Mike was introduced to Valerian culture and its people. He attended assemblies where policy reforms were discussed, visited academic institutions that were researching interstellar travel and environmental preservation, and walked through marketplaces where Earth's influence was already visible in the exchange of goods and ideas. Lyra took him to the bioluminescent forests of Valoria, where they walked under the glow of its flora. It was here, in this surreal landscape, that they found a moment of peace. Lyra spoke of her plans for the future, her hopes for an alliance with Earth and her dream of a galactic community where beings from all worlds could share knowledge and live in harmony. As they stood watching a sunset that painted the sky with colors no earthly sunset could match, Lyra turned to Mike. She reached for his hand, her touch gentle yet filled with an unspoken promise. "I knew from the moment you saved me that our fates were intertwined," she said. "Not just ours, but our worlds." Mike looked into her eyes, seeing the leader she had become and the friend he had cherished. "I was just a man who found an alien in the woods," he replied, smiling. "But now I see a future I want to be part of, with you, with Valoria." They spent more time exploring Valoria together, each day strengthening the bond between them and between their worlds. Mike's journey, which had started with a crash landing and a fight for survival, was now weaving him into the fabric of Valerian society. As his visit drew to a close, the question of his return to Earth loomed large. But in his heart, Mike knew his place was here on Valoria with Lyra. His life on Earth seemed a distant memory as he embraced his new role in this expansive universe. The chapter of his life that began with an unexpected crash had led him here, to a promise made under alien skies, a promise of shared destinies and a shared future. Mike and Lyra stood together, looking up at the stars that had once separated them but now held the promise of their combined dreams. A testament to the power of courage, friendship, and love across the stars.